What's going on, family? This is Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. I want to take a look at a fight that took place April 17th, 1909. And I got to tell you, this is perhaps one of the greatest fights in the entire history of the game. It was a heavyweight fight that is not often talked about, between Joe Jeanette and Sam McVeigh. Now, there's a little bit of a history on this fight, and I'd like to go through it with you right here on the Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. And it would all start with Jack Johnson defeating Denver Ed Martin in 1903. And he would hold the colored heavyweight championship for many years. And he would finally get an opportunity to face a Canadian heavyweight by the name of Norman Russo, better known as Tommy Burns. He would chase Tommy Burns all over the world and corner him in Sydney, Australia in 1908. And after defeating Tommy Burns in 1908, his colored heavyweight championship strap had to be vacated because he was now considered the world heavyweight champion. So Jack Johnson would appoint two fighters that he faced in the past. February 1903, 20-round fight between Jack Johnson and Sam McVeigh. Sam McVeigh would battle my number one ranked heavyweight and fighter of all time, Sam Langford. Sam Langford was the Mexican, Australian, and colored heavyweight and middleweight champion of the world. And Jack Johnson would select Joe Jeanette from Hoboken, New Jersey, and Sam McVeigh, Oxnard, California. April 17th, 1909. And what would become one of the greatest fights and most brutal fights in heavyweight history. Now, Joe Jeanette and Sam McVeigh would get it on April 17th, 1909 in Paris. Joe Jeanette weighed 184 3/4 pounds. Sam McVeigh weighed 201 1/4 pounds. And they would fight in Puy de Paris in France. The referee would be Emile Milat. The World Colored Heavyweight Championship belt was on the line. This was the fight to the finish. Joe Jeanette was a betting favorite. The purse was $30,000 in French dollars and $6,000 in U.S. currency. 2,500 fans were in attendance. This was the third fight out of 5-fight series. And it was one of the most brutal fights of their 5-fight contest. Now, in their third fight in 1909, Sam Langford and Joe Jeanette were fighting the most boring 20-round bout, and the fans were very disappointed. And it looked like to some fans that these two men were just dancing around trying to collect a paycheck. And Jack Johnson had a talk with them and told them that they had to represent correctly, so they would get another shot at each other the same year, 1909, April 17th. And I gotta tell you, this fight here was not videotaped, but it was in the minds of hearts of those who were there, and they got a treat for their money. Because in the opening round of that fight, you had Yaki Lopez and Matthew Saad Muhammad in the 8th round. Marvelous Marvin Hagler and Thomas the Hitman Hearns, first round. Salvador Sanchez and Wilfredo Gomez in the 8th round. Barney Ross and Jimmy McLaurin in the 3rd round. Ray Mancini and Art Frites, first round. It was a combination of that kind of action, one that would be long remembered. Now, Sam McVeigh unloaded a tremendous of rights and left to the head and shoulders, neck and back, chest and breadbasket. And this went on for 16 rounds. Non-stop swinging. He would bruise black and blue marks all over Joe Jeanette's body. But in the 16th round, Joe Jeanette seems to get it together, and he would swing and miss. Overhand rights and jabs and hooks. Sam McVeigh would control the action with powerful overhand rights and what they would call hangmakers. But Jeanette was evenly overwhelmed. And it figured to look like he would be stopped eventually. And when we get back to the corner at the end of that 16th round, the corner would pour an entire bucket of water all over the head of Joe Jeanette. Sam McVeigh's corner was furious. The referee had questioned the corner, and the corner stated there was no rules that they couldn't do that. They were allowed to wake up their fighter, and that they did. Because at the beginning of 17th round, Joe Jeanette would open up with massive artillery. And at this point, Joe Jeanette had been down 27 times. Between the 18th and the 20th round, 21 knockdowns and 5 slips were recorded in behalf of Joe Jeanette. But I gotta tell you, Sam McVeigh went down a total of 7 times in round 42. And at the end of the 50th round, Sam McVeigh could not come out of his corner because the brutal punishment that he would receive from Joe Jeanette was an atrocity. His nose was split. He had a busted eye socket, fractured ribs, dislocated shoulder. But yet he wanted to continue, but he could no longer see Joe Jeanette. He couldn't hear when the corners were talking to him. He was totally delirious. You see, Sam McVeigh was the Iron Mike Tyson of 1988. And Joe Jeanette, beautiful boxer, slugger, high IQ. And these two men would represent boxing in its highest form. One of the most beautiful contests that you could ever witness. Joe Jeanette was given a paper bag for oxygen between 18th and the 20th round. He had an entire bucket of water thrown over his head. But that didn't deter Sam McVeigh. Nor did it deter Joe Jeanette. 2 outstanding performances from 2 outstanding fighters in the same fight. Beautiful exhibition from Joe Jeanette and Sam McVeigh. You had some great fighters at that time. Here you have Jack McVeigh, colored middleweight champion of the world. And he would eventually lose his title to Harry Smith, another black fighter with a fighting record of 55, 1 loss with 54 knockouts. I have him rated number 4, greatest middleweight champion of all times. Although he held the colored middleweight championship, but he was never given an opportunity to fight Harry Greb or Mickey Walker or any of the greats of his time. Tiger Flowers took the title away from Harry Greb in 1926 defeated him in a rematch. He would eventually lose his title to Mickey Walker, the toy bulldog. But he was a phenomenal fighter. They called him the Georgia Deacon, Tiger Flowers. And here you're looking at some outstanding fighters of that time. But nowhere you're going to find better fighters than the black fighters in the 1920s, in the 1910s, in the 1800s, in the 1930s, in the 1940s, 1950s. You go on and on. Outstanding fighters. Here you have the greatest Negro boxers of all times. Unbelievable. Salute to the black fighters. Put in tough work. Never got a fair opportunity to fight any of these men for the championship. However, you're looking at a great era of fighters. Sam Langford. The Boston Bone Crusher. The Barbados Demon. Joe Walcott. Fascinating welterweight champion in the world. Jack Johnson. Colored heavyweight champion, 1903. And world heavyweight champion, 1908. Tom Molyneux and Bill Richmond. Fascinating fighters in the African American community. Never got a fair shake with Tom Cribb. Harry Wells and Sam Langford. Here you have the Georgia Deacon, Tiger Flowers. Canadian bantamweight and world featherweight champion of the world, George Dixon. Fascinating fighter was George Dixon. I just pulled out my African American Police Gazette scrapbook and showed you some of the greatest fighters of all time. Here's Joe Walcott and George Dixon. And his book was packed with information. Thousands and thousands of photos of black fighters that I'm not going to put on the internet. They're only going to get scanned. But I'll show them to you from time to time. I have two of these books, 1,000 pages each. Everything you want to know about the black fighters, I have. Sam Langford, one of the greatest fighters of all times. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series, taking all great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. Harry Morton, another outstanding fighter. And when you didn't do what you were told, this is what happened to the black fighter. Joe Jeanette, Sam McVeigh put up an outstanding fight in 1909. Thanks for hanging in there with me. This is Scrapbook Boxing. Peace.